Staff from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We begin with the decisions, the major decisions from Cabinet. First is the recommendation for the grant of license for the 700 megahertz spectrum. Cabinet gave approval for the grant of a domestic mobile spectrum license of the 700 megahertz spectrum to Rock Mobile Limited. If you'll recall, in 2013, the government of Jamaica gave approval for the allocation and licensing of the 700 megahertz spectrum band for the provision of mobile wireless service consistent with global trends and its policy objectives. The objectives are to increase broadband access to unserved and/or underserved areas, promote competition, innovation, and diversity in the telecommunications sector, and ensure the optimal return in the shortest possible time for the spectrum assigned. In terms of reports, Cabinet received and approved the following annual reports and/or financial statements to be tabled in Parliament: Real Estate Board and Commission of Strata Corporations for the financial year 2017-2018, Petrojam Limited's annual report 2019-2020. We turn now to contracts. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract to AREL Limited for the supply and installation of 6 X-ray machines for health facilities of the Southeast Regional Health Authority. The hospitals to benefit are the Kingston Public Hospital, which is slated to receive 3 X-ray machines, Spanish Town Hospital 1, the National Chest Hospital 1, and the Bustamante Children's Hospital 1 X-ray machine. The contract is in the amount of $453.4 million and was awarded to AREL Limited. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the rehabilitation of the northern groins in Montego Bay, St. James by the Urban Development Corporation in the amount of $200.2 million, and that contract was awarded to M&M Jamaica Limited. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of a contract to undertake the construction of a diagnostic intervention center at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, CASE, in the amount of $85.9 million, and that contract was awarded to C&D Construction and Engineering Limited. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of a contract for the provision of data processing service for the primary exit profile exams for grades 4, 5, and 6 in the amount of $630.2 million, inclusive of GCT, to DPK Information Systems Limited. The contract is for a 5-year period commencing June 2021. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the extension of the 6th form block at Kingston College, located at 2A North Street, Kingston, in the amount of $65.3 million, and that contract was awarded to SM Quality Construction. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the supply and distribution of textbooks to be provided for students at the primary level under the primary textbook program of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information for the 2021-2022 academic year. The contract is in the amount of US $3.2 million, and that contract was awarded to Carlong Publishers Caribbean Limited. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of contract for the supply, delivery, and servicing of 25 double cabin 4x4 pickup trucks in the amount of $133.7 million, inclusive of GCT, and that contract was awarded to Vehicles and Supplies Limited. Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the design, supply, and installation of renewable energy solutions, solar photovoltaic, at the Forest Hills Relift Station in St. Andrew in the amount of $68.2 $1 million, and that contract was awarded to Alternative Power Sources Jamaica Limited. And finally, Cabinet gave approval for the award of a contract for the construction of a cold storage facility in Windalco, Kirkvine, Manchester, in the amount of $65.3 million, and that contract was awarded to Marshall Construction Company Limited. I now turn to the education sector. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, in collaboration with our school leaders, successfully managed the preparation and administration of the primary exit profile PEP6 ability test on Wednesday, May 26, 2021. Preliminary reports informed that approximately 33,000 students were present for the exam. One student was reported to be infected with the coronavirus, and preparations were made for the student to sit the exam safely. Another student was reported to be in the hospital, and as per usual, staff was deployed to the hospital to support the student in completing the assignment. So all the scripts are now being checked and graded. The release date and the weighting of the scores are to be determined. As soon as we have that information, we will make it available. With regards to the CXC exams, I know there has been a lot of questions and comments in the public space, but I believe by now we have a settled position on the CXC exams. So plans are in place to support the administration of the exams, which will now commence on June 28, 2021, instead of a prior date of June 14th. The Overseas Examination Council, OEC, is the agency with the remit to ensure the smooth preparation for and the administration of the CXC exams, as well as the return of exam scripts for marking. They have reported that the centers have been finalized, presiding examiners have been engaged, trained, and deployment schedules shared with them ahead of the start of the exam. The schools, through the exam coordinators, continue to liaise with the OEC to ensure on-the-ground readiness, the pickup and return of exam scripts in a timely manner. And just to recap, so we're all on the same page, the exams will be in the original format, paper 1, paper 2, and 100% moderation of SBAs. All SBA school-based assessments are to be submitted by June 30th, 2021. Exams, as everyone should know by now, have been delayed from the May-June period to begin June 28th and will run through July 31, 2021. Students, by now, those who have decided to defer the sitting of the exam would have taken that decision. The deadline was May 31, 2021. Previously, the exam, the topics, the broad topic areas, those would have been released on May 28th for the students, and plans are in place to have the exam results released by either late September or the first week in October 2021. And CXC has also indicated that consideration will be given in the grading process to account for the psychosocial effect of the pandemic on the students. In terms of numbers that we have, our preliminary review shows that 5,987 CSEC students have requested deferral. In terms of CAPE, 292 students would have requested deferral. For City and Guilds and NCT VET, approximately 24,000 students are registered for City and Guilds exam, and those have been rescheduled for August 10 to 11, 2021. For NCT VET exams, some 16,000 students are registered, and those exams are going on as we speak. They would have started on June 7, and they will run through June 11. With regards to the postponement of PEP 4 and 5, the ministry would have sent out notification that those exams will be taken in the first semester of the next school year. Diagnostic tests. These are ongoing. They are started on the 25th of May, and we would have seen our grade 9 students taking the diagnostic test in mathematics and English language, our grade 7 and 8 as well during the period of May, the last week in May into June. Our grade 6 students would also be taking the diagnostic test in mathematics, language art, science, social studies. And following that, we will have our grades 4 to 5. I think in this week they're doing that. And the last group would be the grades 1 to 3 during the week of June 14 to June 18. And I think that concludes our update from the education system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we can now have the presentation by Minister of Local Government and Community Development, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie. Sir.
Thank you, Minister Morgan, colleague, Minister Williams, representatives of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, good morning. Yesterday, I indicated that the Ministry of Local Government have issued the instructions for the reopening of the Ritz Cafe in Negril in Westmoreland. Let me remind the country that following the incident of an illegal party which was hosted by Ritz Cafe, the decision was taken to close the establishment for 7 days. I want to point out that that is the protocol that we have been observing since March last year. When offenses are committed, we would close the establishment. The management of Ritz Cafe was invited to a meeting along with the Westmoreland and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management. We met with the management last week, Friday, and following the investigations that was done, it was discovered that Ritz Cafe was operating without a place of amusement license, which is a requirement for them to operate. They were in compliance with the certification from the Jamaica Fire Brigade and from the public health body in Westmoreland. We extended the closure of Ritz Cafe for another 4 days and advise them that it is important that they obtain the necessary license in terms of the places of amusement license. They applied to the Westmoreland Municipal Corporation, presenting a copy of the insurance policy that is also a requirement in order for the license to be issued. And on that basis, they obtained the license, and therefore the decision was taken to reopen the establishment. And I want to make the point that what took place in terms of managing the incident at Ritz Cafe was just one portion of the measures that the government have when anyone, individuals or establishment, violates the protocol. I would like to also advise the country that other actions have been taken against the management of Ritz Cafe. There has been questions as to whether or not the police have intervened in this matter. And I can say with certainty that charges have been brought following investigations and questions and answer sessions with the management of Ritz Cafe along with their attorneys, and that charges were laid yesterday against individuals associated with Ritz Cafe. I want to give the country the assurance that the government is acting in the best interests of the people of Jamaica. We have been using the same protocol since March last year to ensure that we gain the compliance under the Disaster Risk Management Act, and we will continue to exercise those powers under the Disaster Risk Act. The police have been working, and I want to use this opportunity to advise the public that there's another location in Negril. I'm not prepared to name that location, but we are calling them to a meeting shortly to deal with certain issues which we believe are in violation of the disaster protocols. The Most Honorable Prime Minister have asked for a report on the incident that took place at Ritz Cafe. The Ministry of Local Government and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management will be presenting our findings of the incident to the Prime Minister next week. I can't speak for my colleague, Minister of Tourism, but I'm quite sure that they will be forwarding to the Prime Minister in short order a report of the incident that took place at Ritz Cafe. I want to continue to ask the public to continue to support our efforts by providing information on illegal activities. I want to give the country the assurance that the government will continue to act in a balanced way, and we are at no time exercising or demonstrating any preferred treatment to any sector of the society. So, in closing, let me advise that charges have been laid against persons associated with Ritz Cafe following a question and answer by members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Mackenzie. At this time, we will open the floor for questions from members of the media. Lisa will be in charge, so she'll manage this process. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Minister Morgan. Good morning to everyone who are joining on Zoom, members of the media. As usual, you know the drill. You raise your hand to ask the question, and we will acknowledge you. Remember to state your name and the media house that you're representing. We start off with Ms. Nadine Wilson-Harris. You can go ahead on mute and ask your question, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, my question to Mr. Mackenzie, as it relates to the issue at Rick Cafe, you said that persons have been charged. Can you please say the names of these persons and what exactly they have been charged with?
That is a matter for the police to disclose those details, but I am saying with certainty that charges have been laid following a question and answer period.
Thank you, Minister Mackenzie. Ms. Wilson-Harris, your hand is still raised. Does that mean that you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. As it relates to MP Dwight Sibbles, I want to find out what is his current status at UTEC, what's his job position, and whether the government sees it as a conflict of interest as it relates to him holding a position there, as well as being a government MP.
Minister Williams will take that question, Mrs. Wilson-Harris.
Okay. So with regards to MP Sibbles, he has been employed by UTEC now for some 27 years. He's risen through the ranks to the position of Chief Internal Auditor. When he became Member of Parliament, UTEC did write a letter to the Attorney General's office seeking their recommendation as to whether or not the MP should continue in that position, given the closeness of the UTEC with the government via the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and the fact that the government does give a subvention to the institution. You would have heard by now that the Attorney General's office responded with regards to the conflict of interest issues. And there was coming together an agreement of UTEC and the Member of Parliament for the Member of Parliament to be in the academic faculty rather than remain in his position as Chief Auditor for the institution. And that has happened. So that's where we are currently. He is no longer the Chief Internal Auditor for UTEC. He is in the dates. I could give the dates. He's no, 1 second, let me get to my. So as of May, right, PS? As of May, right, so as of May 3rd, Cabinet gave the approval for the secondment of the Member of Parliament away from his substantive post as Chief Internal Auditor at UTEC to the academic side of that entity. And we've seen in politics that persons in the educational sector have sat as Member of Parliament while they continue to either teach or be principals in school. So I don't believe that the member going to the academic side of the institution continue to pose a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Minister Williams, for providing a response to that question from Mrs. Wilson-Harris. We'll now move to Ms. Zara Burton. Please, as usual, state the media house that you're representing and unmute yourself. Thank you.
I just want to reiterate that Nadine had a question. Good morning, everybody. I don't mean to be rude. It's just that Nadine, I think, had a follow-up a while ago, and I feel rude coming in on her without her finishing her full thoughts. Would you mind just allowing her to finish, please?
Ms. Wilson-Harris had asked the question. She did ask the follow-up, and so you would have been next in line for your question. So you can go ahead, Ms. Burton.
No, I'm sorry, I actually had a follow-up for the minister. Thank you, Zara.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Wilson-Harris.
I was asking what is the current position that is held exactly? I know that the minister said the academic area, but could you be more specific as to what exactly is he doing in that section? Thank you.
He's a lecturer in the academic faculty at UTEC.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Ms. Burton?
Okay. Thank you so much. Good morning again, everybody. My questions are for the PS. Is she there? Acting
Yes,
PS?
the acting permanent secretary is here. Go ahead, ask the question, and then we'll make the determination as to a response.
Okay. So this question is for Dr. Grace McLean. You, as when you were CEO, there was a 2015 scholarship application administered by the CAP program for matriculation at Western Hospitality, and it's named for you, Dr. Grace McLean Scholarship. Can you talk about how that came about, please, and who funded it? And it was just a follow-up email from Monday. I had sent you an email, but I didn't get a response. So that was the first question, and then I have a follow-up question depending on the answer.
Okay. Our acting PS making her way to respond to your question.
Okay, so as it relates to the scholarship that you're asking about, I believe there was a scholarship application for someone who has completed the career advancement program to matriculate into an associate degree program at the Western Hospitality Institute. At the time, I think it was 2015 or 2014, I was advised that there is a process where different persons, based on their stature as well as their responsibility in the country, are awarded scholarships from time to time, or the scholarship is awarded in the person's name. I was asked at the time, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to mentor some of these young people so that they can at least pursue their education. Please be advised that the scholarship would not have incurred any cost from the government or from me personally. It would have been from the Western Hospitality Institute, who at the time was offering degree and associate degree programs.
Thank you, Acting Permanent Secretary. Dr. Grace McLean. Ms. Burton, do you still need to ask your follow-up question? You had said it would have come depending on the response.
Yes, to Dr. McLean again, please, Dr. McLean. Okay, so the approval process, in other words, because you were the CEO at the time and the WHI was a beneficiary of the CAP program that you also had oversight of, did you go through any kind of process at all in terms of getting approval to accept a scholarship from WHI being named in your honor?
So I did not accept a scholarship personally to be named in my honor. I merely asked or allowed for the young person who would have been awarded to know that the scholarship is being, let me say, overseen by someone who cares about the advancement of her education. I believe Grace McLean is a person and a citizen of this country. And so if I can assist in mentoring these young people, I don't see why I shouldn't have the responsibility to do so. This scholarship had nothing to do with the career advancement program or any programs within the ministry. It is a scholarship that is being offered by an institution. And if you do the research, you will know that there are many institutions that offer scholarships and they utilize persons who they would like to mentor these young people. So the fact that it would have been awarded to a student who would have completed the CAP program had nothing to do with the actual scholarship and the payment for the pursuit of this scholarship.
Thank you, Dr. Grace McLean.
Please don't leave the podium. I just want to ask Dr. McLean again. When you said it has nothing to do with the CAP program, the logos of the Ministry of Education, the logo of the CAP program were both on the actual application form, and where you were supposed to submit it to once you actually complete the application form, it was supposed to be submitted to the CAP program at the Canewood Center, which I understand is a former ministry. I don't know if it's former or current ministry address. So when you say it doesn't have anything to do with the CAP program, why were the logos of the CAP program program and the Ministry of Education used on that application form for submission to the CAP program at Kingwood Centre?
Okay, Ms. Burton, it's clear that you have a significant amount of questions to ask. I am suggesting that you formalize your questions and submit them to the ministry so we can give you a formal response as well. I think that the questions are very important, but they require significant detail, which I do not believe that we're armed with the facts today to ventilate them properly in this forum. Do you have another question, Ms. Burton?
Yes. Following up again on the same set of matters, right? You said, okay, so some time ago, right, you said that at the post-cabinet meeting, Dr. McLean, you said that you have no business relationship with anyone inside or outside of the ministry. So just seeking clarification on something last year, you and I over email. You at the time had an arrangement where your property was being housed. Your property was being used to house students at CMU. And I think a CMU funded bus was taking students that were resident at your premises and your husband's premises to and from CMU. Is it that that arrangement is not going on anymore when you say that there was no business relationship with anyone inside or outside the ministry? And also on that front, you also have...
I must apologize. The matter that you're seeking to ventilate was also ventilated in a parliamentary committee. I think it was the PAC last year. The PAC delved deeply into this matter, particularly related to the accommodation and the bus that you're asking about. I do not believe that it is fair for us to be responding to these questions without having in custody the deliberations of the PAC. We're not saying that the questions do not merit an answer, but I think you should allow us, by submitting the questions, so that we can be fair with a matter that was ventilated last year in the public domain, so we can effectively respond to your question.
Just another thing. I will send my questions, and if you could educate me as to where to send them. But I just want to ask Dr. Grace.
Well, you have been communicating with the PS through email. Yeah. You can send it through the PS through email, as you have been doing.
But she's not responding. So what I'm asking is, at what forum can I get a response, if not through here?
There are several forums. You have the Access to Information Act, which stipulates...
Which is not being responded to.
But I have seen documents, I have documents in my possession where responses were sent to you through the Access to Information Act.
Well, not on these, and I've specifically asked Dr. Ms. Favor Williams about this, and she and I spoke about this as well, where I've been trying to get certain documents from the Ministry of Education through the Access to Information Act, and I've not been successful.
I must apologize if you have not been given the answers that you request. But I am going to take a personal interest in your questions, so you can submit your questions to me as the Junior Minister in charge of information, and I guarantee you that we will give a response. Though I may not be able to guarantee you that you'll get the response that you may appreciate, you will definitely get a response which is fair and reasonable and gives all the facts that are legally available. That is my commitment.
Just to also clarify with Dr. Grace McLean, please, your niece-in-law, your husband's niece, Julia Edwards, right? She was appointed to serve on the committee of the JCTE some years ago. Just wondering if you were specifically the one to appoint her to that committee, please?
Ms. Burton, could you please submit your questions in writing? I'm asking you, please. I'm giving you a personal commitment, Mr. Burton, that submit your questions, CC me on the email, and I will ensure that you get detailed answers to your questions in the soonest possible time.
And thank you, Minister Morgan. There are other members of the media who do have questions to ask. So I'm going to just move to Ms. Tennant. Could you just unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My question is for Minister Williams.
Beg your pardon, Ms. Tennant. Could you just state the media house that you're representing, please? Thank you.
I'm representing Our Today. My question is, given the number of students who have taken the option to defer from CSEC and CAPE examinations, does the ministry foresee schools facing issues for the upcoming academic year?
Okay. Well, the short answer is no. When we look at the numbers, I think I said 4,000, if I can get to them again. 5,000, where is it?
Just allow Minister Williams to just locate that document.
Just to repeat those numbers again. Page 2. Give it. Say to me, 5,987 students would have deferred for the CSEC exams and 292 for CAPE. And so we will be, in short order, letting those students know exactly what the position is. We want to give them some certainty about the upcoming school year, certainty in terms of the placement in the schools in which they are currently. So we, in short order, we will come out with that information. But we don't believe that those numbers we believe those numbers are manageable. Let me put it in a positive way. Those numbers, the number of students who have deferred, we believe that they can be absorbed in their current school.
Thank you, Minister Williams. I'm seeing the raised hand of Mrs. Nadine Wilson-Harris. Could you go ahead and ask your question, please?
Thank you. There are concerns that hospital administrators or medical officers are not being held responsible for, questionable circumstances at the hospital where persons have died. For example, we have the Jody and Ferron situation, the Jalisa McGowan, and now the Shanique Armstrong. What does the government think of the general views that are being expressed as it relates to this?
All right, thank you, Nadine. Minister Morgan will respond to your question.
Hi, Nadine. Thank you for your question. The first thing I want to say is I want to, on behalf of the government, express our deepest condolences to the mother who went through such a traumatic experience. I'm a man, so I cannot stand there and contemplate what women go through, especially in such a situation. But what I can say is that the government is really concerned about the welfare of the mother. We do care about the welfare of the mother, and whenever incidents like this occur, it just reinforces the need and the acknowledgement of our responsibility towards duty of care to all persons who interact with the healthcare system. You would be aware that an investigation is currently being undertaken as it relates to this particular incident. So I have to be very careful in how I respond to it, as I do not want to make any comment that may prejudice this investigation. But I will say to you that the government is extremely concerned whenever any citizen interacts with the healthcare system and there is a feeling that they were not treated in the best way possible. We know that there are challenges within the system. We know that a lot of our healthcare providers, our doctors, our nurses are working really hard with significant challenges with COVID, resource constraints brought on by that. And we have to acknowledge their efforts as well. But primarily and fundamentally, the welfare of our citizens who interact with the healthcare system is paramount in the consciousness of the government. And I just want to reiterate again our sincere condolences to the mother who lost her child. And we can assure that the Ministry of Health and the government is looking into the matter, and there's an investigation taking place, the results of which will be made public so that people will appreciate what the circumstances were and if actions need to fall and who they will fall on.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Ms. Wilson-Harris, your hand was still raised. Do you have a follow-up question?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Another question, final question now from Ms. Burton. Ms. Burton, go ahead, unmute.
Okay, not the doctor, excuse me. to Minister Morgan. On the issue of last time around, chairmen getting contracts from entities, and you shared your notes on Twitter, and I went through them extensively. And I just want to get clarification on something, because I think when we had spoken, I had asked you whether you had consulted a lawyer prior to pulling those notes about what the exact opinion was on whether chairpersons can get contracts from entities that they chair. And I also asked about, or somebody else also asked about, the advice that the lawyers at Heart Trust NTA gave to the entity when it was their turn to figure out whether the chairman could get contracts from that entity. Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that the law, okay, so let us say the law says that anybody with a conflict of interest is excluded from procurement proceedings, right? You also went on to say that the staff orders and also the handbook, which is a public procurement handbook, are, once you declare it, you can get contracts and follow the protocol and that kind of thing. However, there's something that I'd like you to get clarification on, please. I'm requesting, not necessarily for right now, but just for next time. When a law specifically excludes something, can the government or civil servants be guided by procedures that seem to run counter to the law? And additionally, it would seem to me, just in the case of US parliamentarians, you and Ms. Fable, Minister Fable, let us say the section 41 of the Constitution says that if you are a parliamentarian and you get a contract, you are excluded, you have to leave the parliament, something along those lines. You know, unless you get permission or exemption, something like that from the parliament. So I'm just wondering, in that case, it's very explicit where it says unless you get an exemption or unless the parliament deems it to be okay, something like that. I want to know how come in this case it doesn't say an exception in the law, but yet we're using the staff orders, which are procedures, and the handbook, which are procedures, to override the law. So could you check into that, please, for the next time?
I don't need to check into it. I can answer it right now.
Okay.
So, remember our last conversation where the question was there an issue with the company associated with the chairman of the Heart Trust NTA benefiting from contracts from the Heart Trust NTA? I outlined to you that in circumstances that were outlined, there are protocols that govern those situations. I also referred to you Section 4 of the Government Procurement Handbook. And the opinion I got wasn't my opinion, it was legal opinion from the government, from lawyers within the government. And it has been a practice and a standard accepted and chronicled in documents all over that where an individual is a part of an organization, and let's use particularly here a board member of Heart Trust NTA, and a contract, the first thing they do is they declare potential conflict of interest. So usually what they do is when you're appointed to a board, there's a thing in the minutes which asks you to declare conflicts or potential conflicts of interest. Predicated on that, if something comes to the board where you are conflicted, you are supposed to declare and then recuse yourself from that process, which is what you would call a procurement process. In the situation of Heart Trust NTA, none of the contracts that are being contemplated were at the threshold to reach the board level. They were at the threshold where they went to the procurement committee, and then the ultimate sign-off would be the then managing director. The second point you raise is the issue of parliamentarians. The Constitution and the standing orders of the Parliament contemplates potential conflicts of interest, which is why you have an ethics committee. At the beginning of the term, after someone is elected, or throughout the term if they engage in business, and it happens all the time in Parliament because many parliamentarians are involved in business, they are involved in tourism businesses, they are lawyers, and they carry out their function as professionals generally throughout the society. It goes to the ethics committee, it is deliberated, and an exemption is either granted or not granted by the ethics committee. It is tabled in Parliament, the minutes are tabled in Parliament, it's a public document that anyone can see. That is contemplated within the law. If it is that a parliamentarian does not declare and the ethics committee does not give exemption, it is at that point that the parliamentarian can be deemed to have violated the rules of his engagement as a member of Parliament. In the current case that has been brought up, Mr. Sibley's did come forward to the Ethics Committee very early in his term. The Ethics Committee deliberated on the potential conflict and it pronounced on it, which is a public document that can be gotten from the Parliament. So what I'm trying to say to you to conclude is that any reading of the current legislative framework will outline to you that conflicts of interest are contemplated within our law system and protocols have been put in place to deal with it, both at the parliamentary level and at the board level. There is no evidence that either one, Mr. Sibley's has breached those protocols or that the Heart NTA has breached those protocols. We have seen no evidence of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Not seeing any more raised hands, we will bring an end to our bi-weekly post-cabinet press briefing. I want to thank everyone who joined, especially those from the media who asked their question, and also to those who would have joined us on our Facebook Live on the Ministry's Facebook page. Thank the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, and also the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Community Development, who gave an update on matters pertaining to his ministry. We were supported by the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, Minister of State, in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, or Acting Permanent Secretary Dr. Grace McLean at the Education Ministry, and Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer, acting at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray, the Chief Executive Officer of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, who would have joined us via Zoom. We want to encourage everyone to be safe, and we will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Good morning to you.